Okay, welcome to Saturday Baseball. Yay, Malpal going off to buy some shoes. Douglas Boyle, hope you're here. I see you're green. So nice to see you, Jamie Gates. Good to have you back. I'm a little late today, but not really. I put my show on for 1:30, but I plan to come on at 1. So either way, it doesn't matter. We're talking baseball. Um, Nice to see you guys in the chat room, and anybody that's watching on Facebook or YouTube, you should come to the chat room. It is lennymelnickfantasysports.com/live. And that's where we chat and have conversations. So I know there's lots to talk about with the sticky substances, but I kind of feel like it's been, talked about so much already. Um, I, I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about sticky substances today because how can you not? And I actually do have a list of pitchers that have their spin rate increased by a good percentage. So compared to what they were doing last year. And I think that there are a handful of pitchers that we should be concerned about as far as the sticky substances. It might not be who you think, and it's probably not. I think it's being overblown a little bit, but I do think that hitters are going to start hitting better. I do think that there's going to be some veteran hitters like Charlie Blackmon who is going to benefit from the reduction in use of sticky substances. And I mean, it's going to be an interesting situation because the sticky substances, like in the form of rosin and sunscreen, like Bullfrog, that stuff's been used for years. And now it's gotten to the point where because baseball has to do something about the sticky substances, it makes you wonder, are they going to draw the line and just say, like, I mean, how are they going to differentiate between a guy that's just using rosin and sunscreen to help his grip, actually help his grip rather than increase his spin rate? So we'll see what happens there. But I think that we can assume that the majority of pitchers are using it. I don't think it's going to affect the pitchers as much as the hitters, though. I know that sounds kind of weird because how can I think that it's going to affect one but not the other? I just don't. Like Garrett Cole, for instance, is always being brought up. And part of the reason why Garrett Cole is being brought up all the time is because he's that good. So, he's the best pitcher. Well, how can we say anybody's better than DeGrom after what he did yesterday? But Garrett Cole, I think, and Bauer too they're really the front page news, but Garrett Cole is nowhere near showing the increase in spin rate compared to Bauer. Bauer has increased his spin rate by like 17% over the last couple years, and that is way more than any other pitchers. And Bauer is like the king of the spin rate, so I'm not surprised that he's been able to increase his spin rate more than any other pitcher. But I'm saying that we can assume that the majority of pitchers are using it. 95 to 97% of the pitchers are using it. That's so. I mean, if it affects all pitchers, how bad is it going to hurt your fantasy team if all pitchers are not allowed to use it? I think it'll affect some pitchers more than others, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I'll give you a list of the pitchers maybe that you should be concerned about, and even a couple pitchers that have lowered their spin rate over the last year, which can't be good. It just can't be good because literally, here's what it boils down to. The spin rate, higher spin rate equals more movement. That's what it is. And it's late movement. So before this whole sticky substance stuff started to come out, I learned at Arizona Fall League like about a year ago. I remember Eno Saris talking about that. What can you really learn from spin rate? Like, what does it say about a pitcher? Well, it can basically tell you which pitchers have late movement on their pitches. And it's a huge thing because even though we can tell movement, we can see that the pitch is moving. We can measure how much it's moving on a vertical basis or whatever. We can tell how much it's moving, but we can't tell when it's moving. And so obviously the later the movement, the better the pitch is because it gives the batter less time to figure it out. Anyway, the spin rate, that's what I figured out then, was that spin rate is good for late movement. And I'm telling you now that like spin rate and movement they're one and the same. Like really, if you up your spin rate, the movement on the late movement is going to increase. And that's what's really throwing hitters off. Like Charlie Blackmon said that he literally has to go out there and try not to hit the ball because where he's seeing the pitch come, like where he's seeing the pitch is not where it is. So he said it's just really hard to get used to. And I absolutely look at his stats this year. I think he's been affected by this increase in movement even more than other batters, but who's to say? Okay, so let's do a couple tidbits. These are some nuggets that Lenny found, and we have a trivia question. So if you're listening right now, the trivia of the day is, okay, other than Andrew McCutchen, who are the only two other players who've reached 10 or more home runs this year too? They've done it this year, but this year and at least 10 seasons. So including this year, 10 seasons in a row. Let me read it again. Other than Andrew McCutchen, who are the only two hitters who have hit at least 10 home runs for 10 straight seasons, including this current season? That kind of narrows it down for you, right? So there's a couple that, well, should I tell you that their long streak, like there's like some really good ones where their home run streak ended last year. Otherwise, they would be able to say that they've done it for 10 years, like Harper, okay? Pujols is another one that didn't hit it last year, but he would obviously be there. And Longoria didn't hit it last year either, but I think, wait, can get to 10 this year. Harper, Trout, and Rizzo can get to 10 straight seasons this year if they hit 10 home runs, which I assume that all three of them are going to do that, right? I mean, how hard is it to hit 10 home runs? Anyway, the streaks that ended last year were Pujols, Upton, and Longoria. And Upton's a good player to pick up this week, by the way, if you are in a league where he happens to be available. I mean, his batting average is bad enough that he could be available. So check it out. He's a good play this week. More tidbits. Clayton Kershaw. He has 36 games with 9 or more strikeouts and no walks. 36 starts. That's the second most in Major League Baseball history, and Randy Johnson is the only one that had more with 9 strikeouts and no walks. And guess what? We have now a shutout on yesterday. DeSclafani, who I did not believe in at all going into the season, rightfully so, by the way. I don't regret that. But he tossed a 2-hit shutout yesterday against the Nationals. This is the second time this season that he'd done this. He had some help from his defense, like Juan Soto was about to hit a home run, but it was stolen. Mike Tauchman saved the day on that one. But bottom line, it only took him 103 pitches to throw the whole game, 9 innings. That's unheard of these days. Complete game shutout. So he's had a great season. I'm not going to take that away from him, okay? He's had a good season. So he gave up 10 earned runs one time this season, and the rest of his starts have been really good. He goes up against the Arizona Diamondbacks next, so he could pitch another one this season. Anyway, he's the first San Francisco Giants pitcher to toss multiple shutouts with 3 hits or less in a game since Madison Bumgarner did it in 2015. And he is the first Giants pitcher with multiple shutouts in a season since Johnny Cueto, 2016. That's a pretty good feat. But anyway, especially nowadays when pitchers can't make it into 6 innings most of the time. Jacob deGrom. What can we say about deGrom? Well, number one, I could say that he's like kind of hurt right now. He came out of the game talking about his arm being tight, and he said that he did say that he doesn't feel like it's that serious. He was able to pitch through it, but it did feel, he's feeling it. He's got something. So be on the lookout for that. He's got something going. Anyway, let's just celebrate the stuff that he's done so far this season and in his career overall. Jacob deGrom has the lowest ERA through 10 starts since earned runs even became a thing, and that was in 1913. It's .56. He is the first pitcher to have more RBIs, okay, than earned runs allowed. That's crazy. That's just unbelievable. In any 10 start, okay, no, he's got more RBIs than earned runs. Plus, he's done something else in his 10 starts. He's done all kinds of things. Let's just go in the order that I have these. I was going to try to get them all out of order, but that's probably not a good idea, obviously. So he has more RBIs than earned runs allowed in any 10 start span in a single season since RBI became a thing in 1920. He hasn't allowed more than one earned run in any of his 10 starts. That's the longest streak by any pitcher since Bob Gibson. He only had 11 too, so don't be surprised if DeGrom takes over this little milestone. That was in 1968 that it happened last. He's driven in more runs than earned runs allowed. That's crazy. We already said it. He reached 100 strikeouts in 61 and 2/3 innings, and I think it's the fastest that it's ever happened in Major League Baseball, at least in like the modern era. So, dating back to at least 1900. We don't even know like what happened before that, but I guarantee in any baseball that we are aware of, he has hit 100 strikeouts quicker than anybody. It's so amazing too. It's coming after a season where it was just a messed up season. He is like on his game all the time. He's absolutely the best pitcher in baseball without a doubt. And it's not just because of these numbers too, because there's more to it than that. Like, he has such mound presence. He has not let it affect him when he's on the mound. The fact that the Mets have pretty much put him through the ringer as far as run support, like he's has some crazy stats there too that, just the run support that he's had over the years could really just mentally screw with somebody. He's not let it affect him, obviously not one bit. He's about to win another Cy Young. It's crazy. So cheers to Jacob DeGrom, okay? The Arizona Diamondbacks, okay, let's talk about this. This is horrible what the Arizona Diamondbacks are going through right now. It's absolutely horrible. They have momentum, but it's in the fully wrong direction. I mean, their momentum is so bad at this point. I mean, they lost yesterday, and albeit they lost in 10 innings. So it was a good try. And they don't seem to give up in games either. You don't see, like, you do see them scoring late in games. You'll see them score like 3 runs in the 9th, but it's just too late, but they do score late in games. They seem to they haven't lost all hope. Okay. Cause if they did, they'd be just lethargic after they know they're losing in the 8th inning. But anyway, here's what happened. They've lost 31 of their last 36 games. They've lost a whole slew of road games. They can't win on the road. They can't win at home, but they really can't win on the road. Yesterday, Torey Lovullo comes in, and he is going to take out Ryan Butcher. He's the reliever in the 10th inning, and he only faced 2 batters. So, of course, here, this guy thinks he's being pulled out of the game, and the umpire says, no, you have to go back in there. So he went back in there for now to Kurt Suzuki. He throws and hits Kurt Suzuki, which loads the bases, right? So that really stinks that Torey Lovullo wasn't paying attention to the rules or whatever. It happens. I'm not saying he's a bad manager for that, but it was who knows what would have happened if he didn't come out there and interrupt the momentum. I don't know, but regardless, it's just another loss for them. They are just not cutting it this year. They will be sellers at the deadline. Like, whenever Lenny brings up who's going to be sellers at the deadline, I'm always like, I don't know. It's not close to the deadline, and it depends on what teams are doing at the deadline. But it's late enough now in the season to say that the Arizona Diamondbacks will be sellers. Okay, they are going to be sellers. What do they have? I don't know. I mean, you can't really trade or sell Gallen right now. He would be worth something, but you can't get rid of him. He's hurt. You'd be just stupid. So I don't know. I haven't looked at their contracts, but obviously they're sellers. Moving on. Ohtani, this guy, I know for sure that I've never seen in my lifetime anybody like this. that he is finally living up to what everybody wanted him to be the last couple seasons. It feels like he is going to continue doing this. He's excellent. Yesterday, what does he do yesterday? He allows 2 runs on 5 hits and 2 walks with 8 strikeouts over 5 innings, and then he goes out and plays the outfield. And he gets like 2 doubles, and he was even hit with a pitch at one point. He fouled a ball off of his knee, early in the game, and he said it felt pretty stiff, but this guy, it doesn't matter. Who has the energy to go out there and pitch all these innings and then go hit and play in the outfield? It'd be one thing if he was just designated hitter, but you do have to exert some energy going out and playing. I think he's playing left field, but as far as fantasy is concerned, he's definitely played enough times now in the outfield to qualify as an outfielder, I think. I mean, it's 5 games. So in most leagues that I play in, 5 games is how many appearances you need to qualify at a position in the given year. So this guy's crazy. He's allowed 4 runs or less in each appearance on the mound this season. He's tied for the MLB lead in extra base hits with Nicholas Castellanos. 35 extra base hits. Okay? It's crazy. So this is the 5th time that he's appeared in the outfield. And what did he do yesterday? He got 2 doubles, right? 2 doubles, and I don't know. But he's the first starting pitcher since 1901 to bat in one of the top 4 spots in the lineup in a National League ballpark. That's not that surprising, okay? Because he plays in the outfield too. So 5 innings, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. And then I know he did hit 2 doubles at least and scored a couple times maybe. Anyway, Jeff McNeil, the Mets guy, he is expected to come back this weekend, I think. Conforto, they say he'll potentially come back next weekend, so we'll see. Let's talk about spin rate again. Hi, Douglas. Nice to see you. Nelly Cruz. Okay, is that the answer to the question, the trivia? That is one of them. You know that's one of them. Nelly Cruz and Freddie Freeman. Yep, those are right. 2 of them. 2 right answers. Okay. Let's see. Jacob deGrom, we did. Ohtani, we did. Let's talk about spin rate. All right. Here's the pitchers that you have to watch out for. These are the pitchers with a huge increase in spin rate. Bauer, dude, 17.6 or something percent. 17%. His increased spin rate. I know he's doing this on purpose, and he doesn't care if he gets caught. He will continue to use substances until he does get caught. And, I've heard a lot of different outlooks on this sticky substance thing. And, of course, one interesting aspect of it was an article at RotoWire from Joe Sheehan, who talked about how it affected the game of baseball when they changed the baseball in 2014 in the middle of the season, or maybe it was 2015, but he said, what I'm really surprised about is that MLB is going to change the way, but you have to do something about it when obviously the MLB is willing to sweep anything under the rug as long as possible until they're forced into doing something, which right now they are forced into doing something because of the outcry from players and also the fact that their objective of changing the baseball going into this season was so that it wouldn't fly as far. So now you have a situation where you have the baseball, fixed so that it doesn't go as far, and you have hitters and pitching coaches, pitchers and pitching coaches. Literally, the pitching coaches were like giving this stuff out, like a whole array of what kind do you want in the dugout, or in the bullpen. They'll give an array of choices for which sticky substance you should be using. They have to do something about it. So I do not think that It'll be interesting, of course, to see what happens. But Tyler Mahle, however you say his name, he's the second highest increase in spin rate. That would be 14%. It's a huge increase because no other pitcher even comes close to Bauer or Tyler Mahle as far as an increase in spin rate. In fact, some of the pitchers on the list that are like 3% increase, these pitchers also increase their velocity, which automatically increases the spin rate on the baseball. So if you see a pitcher that has increased his velocity over the past year and you see that he also increased his spin rate, you could say, well, that could be attributed to the fact that he's got a couple more miles per hour on his pitches and you can blow it off, like Clayton Kershaw. His spin rate did increase this year, 2.54%. Not a big deal. But the next one on the list, besides 17% Trevor Bauer and 14% Tyler Mahle, is Walker Buehler. Now, he has increased by 7%. I told you, there's a huge difference between these two and the rest of the pack. But Buehler, 7%. Buehler, I would be very interested. I wish they kept track of the increased spin rate on breaking balls too, because even though they say that, spin rate differing between starts and stuff like that is more natural for a breaking pitch to do it than it is for a fastball. So that's why they're keeping track of fastballs instead. But I wish they would keep track of both, because I know that Buehler has a couple different pitches where the spin rate has increased different levels. And Bauer said straight up, he said, if you want, a pitcher could even go out there and only use sticky substances for certain types of pitches if they wanted to, which makes it very hard for them to nail anybody based on the increased spin rate. So say they're only using it on breaking balls. MLB isn't even paying attention to breaking balls. So why not use it on breaking balls and then not on fastball? Then you keep your spin rate relatively even on fastballs and then you just use it on your breaking pitches. Can you imagine the amount of movement that you can add to your breaking pitches? I think that MLB is making a huge mistake by only focusing on fastballs. That's just my opinion. Okay, the next guy on the list is Dylan Cease. He is increased by 6.6%. Tyler Glasnow, another guy. Tyler Glasnow, as soon as he leaves Pittsburgh. Maybe all this time I've been talking about Pittsburgh. I've been saying like pitchers are so much better when they leave Pittsburgh. Like, look at all of them. Look at any one of them that you can think of. I mean, including Garrett Cole, including Tyler Glasnow, including Jameson Taillon, whatever. All of these pitchers that leave Pittsburgh are better. And I say, well, maybe it's not Pittsburgh now after all, because Tampa Bay is another team on the list of teams that have the highest increase in spin rate. But you also have to keep in mind that when these teams are noticing spin rate too, and they're literally getting rid of their pitchers that don't have a high spin rate. So it may, like the Dodgers, they got rid of low spin rate pitchers and they added only high spin rate pitchers. Tampa Bay is probably the same way. They probably have been, they targeted, but immediately when Glasnow went to Tampa Bay, his spin rate increased, same as when this Garrett Cole went to Houston. And so it's hard to overlook that when every pitcher comes to your team, that the spin rate increases. So whatever they're doing, I mean, Glasnow is still going to be a good pitcher, but he has increased his spin rate immediately when he moved from Pittsburgh. So that's another thing. How long have they been using it? Trevor Bauer brought this thing to the forefront in 2018. We don't know when everybody started using it, but we know that we're pretty sure the Houston Astros were using it, and they were way ahead of the rest of the pack as far as pitching goes. We always thought it was just the track man, and like, no, they basically just figured out the spin rate a long time ago. Tampa Bay is on to it too. So we'll see what happens. But Ian Anderson, increase in spin rate. And then like Scherzer and Kershaw and John Means and all these guys have a noticeable increase in spin rate. But I wouldn't say that it's going to, I wouldn't put him on my trade immediately list. Okay. But Cole, I don't know about Cole. Cole's been using substances ever since he left Pittsburgh. So looking at his year-to-year increase in spin rate is not going to tell you much. I can almost guarantee that he's been using it at least since 2018 when he went to Houston. I mean, he's been using it since he went there. So that's what I'm saying. It's hard to tell, but we know that a good chunk of them are using it. They're not just using normal rosin too. They're using this stuff called spider tack. Like you could really throw it's kind of it's really pretty risky to be using this sticky of substances. When you throw the ball this hard, right? Then you have that much more chance of putting out your arm, hurting your elbow or your shoulder. And this stuff is made for people that climb walls. It's like for rock climbers and stuff. It's made for gripping. It's made for, I don't know, I was just hearing it in the athletic podcast. It was Brittany Giroli. She was talking about this spider tack. And I think those podcasts are free. So you should check that. That's a good podcast. It's her and Eno and Nando. They do a good job. Anyway, moving on. All right. Here's some pickups. We have player pickups. I was going to tell you, a couple of pitchers actually lowered their spin rate this year. Marcus Stroman, Julio Urias spin rate went down. Freddie Peralta spin rate went down, and Garrett Richards. Also, Frankie Montas, his spin rate went down, I think. Yeah. I'm pretty sure they went down. Those pitchers that I just said. Okay. Picking up players is getting so old right now. Every time I pick up a player, I feel like they stop hitting or get hurt, but you still have to keep trying and you can't give up yet. So you should never give up anyway. There are players out there to pick up, and think of it like this. Brighter days are on the horizon for hitting. That's true. Brighter days are on the horizon for hitters. I'm not for sure about the injured list, okay, because that's out of control, but I'm just saying they'll probably start hitting a little bit better. Will there be more hit batters? You guys? I wonder, because there's already so many hit batters. It's crazy. If it goes up from here, we'll be breaking records. We probably are already breaking records. I think we are. Anyway, Max Stassi. We're going to start with a couple catchers. There's quite a few catchers available. And I mean, catchers are not bad this year. They're not great. They're not going to play all season. They're not going to get 500 at bats, but there's some catchers. There's a good chunk of catchers actually that aren't going to hurt you. There's been some years where the catchers are so bad that you're glad that they don't play for 500 at bats. But okay, right now we have Max Stassi. He basically took over the starting catcher spot since he came back from injury. Kurt Suzuki is now the second catcher. He's batting in the middle of the order too, this guy. That's one great thing about him. That's why he's first on my list, because he bats in the middle of the order. He's been in the lineup only 4 out of 7 days because Kurt Suzuki does still go behind the plate, and he still will going forward. But since Max Stassi has been healthy, which is the month of June basically, he's played in 8 games, 26 plate appearances, and he has 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, 2 walks. He doesn't steal bases. Batting .458. Okay, that's a problem. It's going to go down. It's not going to be .458. The guy's 30 years old, so we kind of know a little bit about what we're going to get from him. He does bat in the middle of the order, though, so this is great for RBIs and runs. And like I told you, he has 3 home runs in the past 8 games since June 1st, basically. He's batting .340 with a .397 on base percentage on the season, and with 4 home runs. So 3 of his 4 home runs have been hit just in the last 8 games. And like I said, his batting average on balls in play is crazy high. It's .424. He's much better at home than he is on the road. That could just be a fluke. I mean, he hasn't really played that much. So he bats .424 at home and only .200 on the road. But look, his competition, Kurt Suzuki, is having worse of a season than that. He only bats .220 on the season. So 2 home runs and 7 RBIs. He's only played in 4 games in June since Max Stassi's been back. So he's definitely worth adding if you need a catcher. And there's a couple other ones if you're interested, like Eric Haas. catcher in Detroit, or maybe you say his name. I'll just spell it for you. It's Hasse. He plays other positions, which is great. And the manager, AJ Hinch, said that he is going to find a way to get him in the lineup on a regular basis. So he has been in 6 of the last 7 games, batting 4th or 5th. Wonderful. And he's played 3 times at catcher, 2 times in left field, and 1 time at DH in the past week. So 5 total games in the outfield. That means he should qualify at both catcher and outfield. And there's nothing better than a catcher who actually doesn't play catcher. If he's playing out in a position, it's much better. You could still slot him in as a catcher. He strikes out 35% of the time. That's what you get with him. It's not going to be anything different. He strikes out 35% of the time. His contact rate is low, like 60%, but he's hitting right now. And how can you, just don't get too attached to him. His batting average on balls in play is only 302, but the fact that he strikes out 35% of the time is a problem, because batting average on balls in play doesn't really count when you aren't hitting the ball. It only counts for hits. Anyway, in the month of June, just in the month of June, he's played in 9 games with 6 home runs and 9 RBIs. Okay, that's crazy. 9 RBIs and 6 home runs in just the month of June. So that's great. William Contreras, I don't have any notes about him. I don't think that he's probably available in most leagues, but if he is, take a look at him. He's hitting well. I just didn't really put any notes down because I assume that he's already snagged, but I thought I'd just mention his name at least, because he would probably be great addition if you need somebody and you're in a shallow league. Martin Maldonado for deeper leagues, like, he's always available in leagues, but I picked him up earlier this season in a couple leagues. But I needed him to fill in for James McCann, who wasn't hurt but wasn't hitting for a long time. Now he's hitting, and I'm happy about it. And he bats in a great spot in the order. But other than that, I have had Maldonado at a couple periods this year. He does get hits, and he does play every day pretty much. He's one of the few catchers that plays most of the time. So far in June, he has 1 home run and 8 RBIs with 6 runs. He's batting 207. That's probably not going to change. So there you go on that. But if you're in a deep league, he's played 6 of the last 7. He does hit at the bottom of the order, and he is not going to ever have a good batting average. But still, that was what I told you was just in June. And on the season, he has 17 RBIs, 4 home runs, 17 runs. He's better versus lefties, but if you don't have a choice, whatever. I try to make the players not just in shallow leagues, but deeper leagues too. And he's for deeper leagues where the other pitchers or the catchers that I mentioned already are not available. Okay? All right, capiche. First baseman, Vogelbach. Is it time to pick up Daniel Vogelbach? Okay, in the month of June, he's hit 3 home runs already in 26 at-bats, right? That's great. He's batting 308. He bats second in the lineup. In 6 of the last 7 games, he bats second. He's been in the lineup 6 of the last 7. He's got 6 home runs and 12 extra base hits on the season with 19 runs and 13 RBIs, 224 batting average overall. He can't hit lefties, so don't expect him to. Don't even expect him to be in the lineup when you face lefties, but on occasion he will. He does get on base, and that's why he hits near the top of the order. He walks 15.2% of the time, and he strikes out 21% of the time with a 74.6 contact rate. So that's pretty good. Christian Arroyo is second baseman for Boston. He pretty much has taken over the second base job from who was playing it before, Marwin Gonzalez. See, I think there's going to be somewhat of a platoon going on here, but right now Arroyo is very hot. In the last 9 games in June, he has 3 home runs, 10 RBIs. He's batting 286 with a 394 on base percentage, and Marwin Gonzalez is hitting horribly. He's actually batting 168 against right-handed pitching. So you can assume that he probably won't be in against righties. And definitely, if there is a platoon at all, which, Marwin Gonzalez is like the ultimate utility guy, so he can play wherever the Red Sox need him. But if there is a split, sharing of the at-bats at this position, then it's the good end of the platoon is going to go to this Arroyo. He's hitting 276 on the season and 286 in June. So all 3 of his home runs have come in June, and 10 of 15 of his RBIs came in June. He's only 26 years old, but seriously, he never did anything in the minors to make me think that he's going to be any good like this going forward. He could. I mean, he's 26 years old, and we do know that his batting average on balls in play is super high. It's kind of worrisome a little bit. You just know by his minor league stats that what he's going to be, and it's probably not going to be like 3 home runs every 9 games or anything like that, but he should get a decent amount of playing time, and the Red Sox lineup is good. Patrick Wisdom, do I even need to talk about this guy? I think everybody knows what he's doing. He's been all over the news. He's batting like crazy. In June alone, in 10 games, he's got 5 home runs in 10 games. Okay. The thing about Patrick Wisdom is that he is 29 years old too. He's not just a youngster, like a 22-year-old that's just making his major league debut. Like, we know about him too. He is going to hit for a lot of power, and he's also going to strike out a ton of the time. Okay, that's it. He's a 3 true outcome hitter, and that's if he walks, which he's been walking okay, but you know, these 3 true outcome hitters, half the time they don't even hardly take a walk. So his walk rate is 8%. He does take a walk. He will get in the lineup, and he's going to hit a home run, a walk, or strike out. That's it. That's all you're going to get out of him, okay? So if he does happen to get on base, he'll, you know, he has 7 runs this month, 9 RBIs, and 5 homers. That's really what it boils down to. He also has 15 strikeouts in 36 plate appearances. And so, okay, if he can continue to take a walk, it will help his fantasy value a lot. These guys, it matters. So if you have a pitcher or a hitter that not in points leagues, but in roto leagues, you know, they could really hurt you. But if they can take a walk, they are very valuable, especially in on-base percentage leagues. In roto, they are valuable if they can take a walk. All there is to it. The Cubbies are 12-5 since he got called up on May 25th, but they've been good. You know, they've been good all season pretty much. I know, Douglas. Hi, Unholy Toledo. What? Brendan Rodgers hit 3 home runs this week? What does that mean? I don't know, man. I don't know if I should believe this 3 home runs, because he went 3 years without hitting a home run, didn't he? I don't know if I believe it. I mean, okay, so Lenny really has liked Brendan Rodgers a lot of the time. He's been a fan of him. I don't know if he still is a fan of him, though, because he really, I think, kind of lost a lot of people that were just like, when is this guy ever going to do it? He plays for Colorado, for crying out loud. It took him 3 years to hit 1 home run. But yes, I do think, yes, Jamie Gates, I agree with you. He did take over second base. Unholy, how's it going today? Tell the dogs hello for me. And also, I have somebody to add to my list of, you know, the game that we're playing with your son, the celebrity death game that we're playing. I don't know what to call it, but it sounds horrible. I wonder if I could change that or add a name to it. Or do I have to just keep, like, can I make trades or pick up players in this league? I'd like to know if I could add a player to my list. Billy McKinney, New York Mets. Billy McKinney was designated for assignment by the Brewers back on May 22nd, and then he was signed by the Mets on May 25th. Now, here's a guy, okay? Now, I don't know what his age is. I would like to know what his age is, actually. I feel like he's been around for a while. He's been in the lineup because he's hitting. So in 9 games in the month of June, he has 2 home runs, 10 hits, 8 RBIs, a stolen base. He's batting .333 with a .394 on base percentage. But remember earlier we did talk about the Mets activating a couple hitters from their injured list. They have I think they have the most injuries in baseball, though, so they'll probably still need it. You find a way into the lineup if you hit. But apparently, Billy McKinney was doing the same thing for Milwaukee when they had injuries. And then when Yelich came back, they were like, we don't need you anymore, and they DFA'd him. So he's got 7 home runs and 17 extra base hits, okay? 2 stolen bases on the season, 237 batting average with a 293 on base percentage. Obviously, can't take a walk very good. Strikes out 24% of the time. Has played 9 games at first base and 33 games in the outfield, so he should qualify at both positions. And he's been in the lineup all 7 of the last 7 games. So he's batted all over the place. He bats first, bats 7th, bats 6th, bats 9th, bats 8th, bats 5th. He bats everywhere but leadoff, pretty much. In just the past 7 games, he's batted leadoff twice, 7th one time. He batted 6th twice, and 8th once, and 5th once. So he's all over the place. Now, can I reiterate this idea of picking up Luis Severino immediately? I mean, honestly, people, if you're listening to this show, you probably listened to last week's show, and you probably did the smart thing by going up and picking him up and just putting him on your bench for a minute while you wait for him, because he now is the only one really that we can look forward to coming back, because Chris Sale, I don't know, didn't he recently have his rehab pushed back? And also, obviously, one that we were really looking forward to, Noah Syndergaard, he's out of the mix now. And there was one other one that we were waiting for coming back from Tommy John surgery, and it's like he's not coming back. I mean, Soroka's out for the season, and there was one other pitcher that we thought maybe would come back second half. Either way, they're all hurt. Severino is the only one that's coming back. Okay, he was transferred to high A yesterday. This is yesterday or today, maybe. Anyway, he's on his way back. They say he should come back by the All-Star break, but I say he's going to be back before then. He's going to be back before the end of June, if close to the end of June. I mean, fingers crossed that nothing bad happens to him, but he is absolutely the closest one coming back. The next maybe big thing that you want to focus on your fab money on, because he is going to be better than any of these prospects that are coming up. Okay, so that's my biggest input. Dude, grab Severino if you can at this point. If you don't, you're not able to, then do it when you can. But in the next couple weeks, he'll probably come up. How many rehab starts does he need, right? If he could pitch, he spent a long time coming back from this. He spent a long time coming back from the surgery, and he should be ready to go. He pitched 2 2/3 innings in his last low A rehab start. So that was on the 6th of June. Now he's moving up one level. Who knows where? It doesn't really matter. When they're on their way back, it doesn't really matter. I don't think where they're doing it. It's just rehab is rehab, whether it's at AAA or AA or single A, it doesn't really matter. All I know is that he needs to work his way up to about 4 or 5 innings. Then he will be ready, and it will be super exciting. Okay. So do it. Pick him up. Now, next on the list, if Douglas and I found this guy last week after my show, we talked about Brent Suter in Milwaukee. So Brent Suter is doing what Devin Williams was supposed to be doing, which is getting wins and pitching in a high leverage relief role. He has 7 wins on the season, okay? But do not think for a second that this guy is going to be great for your ERA or your WHIP. He's not. Does he? Let's see what he's doing. He's got 34 strikeouts in 33 innings, so he will strike out some batters, but this is what you look at him for, wins. He has 7 wins. That's more than a lot of starting pitchers do, okay? And he only pitched like 33 innings in the season, but his ERA is horrific most of the time. It's not great. And the fact that he pitches so few innings, though, he is still valuable, in my opinion, especially if you're in a league that you have to fill up 2 relief spots. And he's great for that. I'm always trying to sneak in a starting pitcher into that relief spot. So whenever I can find a reliever that gets wins, I like it. And I have a spot for him. However, he's not going to help you. He does pitch better on the road. Okay. Milwaukee's not a great place for him to pitch. He's got a 2.60 ERA on the road, and his ERA at home is 5.63. So anyways, just remember 7 wins is what he has. Tucker Davidson is going to have 2 starts this week. first he gets to, both of these starts are at home in Atlanta. He gets to pitch against Eduardo Rodriguez, who's been a nightmare, okay, all season. And then he goes up against Adam Wainwright, who literally is the St. Louis Cardinals' best pitcher at the moment. And I mean, Flaherty, since Flaherty's been out, he's their number one guy. He's better than Eduardo Rodriguez. Okay, that's for sure. But here's what I know about Tucker Davidson. He's made 3 starts at the major league level this year. He has thrown 6 innings twice and 5 2/3 innings one time. His last 2 starts, he has not given up any earned runs over 11 2/3 innings. The only runs that he's allowed, obviously, are in his first start against the Mets, where he allowed 3 earned runs in 6 innings. He has 14 strikeouts in 17 2/3 innings and only 10 hits allowed. He has walked 7. So his ERA is 1.53 and his WHIP is 0.96. He's allowed 1 home run. Okay. But before he got called up, he had 3 earned runs on 8 hits. Literally, if you look at his stats for this year and compare him to what he did in the minors before he got called up, they're like exactly the same. He's pitched 20 innings at both levels, 3 earned runs. Okay, looks pretty much the same. His ERA was under 1 in the minors before he got called up, and so that's good. And his WHIP was 0.60. So he was doing well in the minors. That's probably why he got the call up. In 2019, which is the most innings that this guy has thrown, he threw 129 2/3 innings. He allowed 108 hits on 129 innings and 5 home runs. He had a 2.15 ERA. This is in 2019. The most he's thrown, innings, 129. So, I mean, whatever. He could probably go the rest of the season and still be fine with that. So he's thrown like 40 total. I don't know. Anyways, he's a good grab this week because he's got 2 starts, both at home. One of them against the horrendous Eduardo Rodriguez. Pick up one of these guys to replace him if you have him on your team, because he is not helping you. He is hurting you. Even though the Red Sox win games, he stinks so bad. He is not rosterable in any form or fashion or format. That's true. Vladimir Guerrero or Gutierrez. Why do I say? Well, I know why. Vladimir Guerrero is a hitter in Toronto who's having an excellent season. But Vladimir Gutierrez pitches for Cincinnati. He has 2 starts this week. He's made 3 starts too so far in his young career. He's 25 years old. First 2 starts, he threw 5 innings. And the third start, he threw 7 innings. Gotta love seeing that. Okay. Just love it. His first 2 starts, he struck out 3 in each of his first 2 in 5 innings pitched. His last outing was on July 9th or June 9th. He struck out 7 in 7 innings. That's great. He has 5 earned runs in 17 innings, 11 hits allowed, 13 strikeouts, 8 walks. He has a 2.65 ERA, a 1.12 WHIP. Before getting the call up at AAA, he had a 2.65 ERA, the same, with 5 earned runs on 11 hits in 17 innings. It sounds exact. Maybe this is the guy that's exactly the same. Maybe this is him. They're both. But regardless, he was doing well in the minors. He's doing well now. Made 3 starts. I don't like the fact that he pitches for Cincinnati, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm still, I'm like Luis Castillo. He had a good outing. Well, he had a good outing compared to what his other outings have looked like this season. Okay, so his last outing was reasonable. It's a step in the right direction. Gutierrez pitches up against Milwaukee. I don't like that, but it's Eric Lauer, who's not a very good pitcher, and then he goes to San Diego. So he's got definitely more difficult to start week than Tucker Davidson does. But he's going up at San Diego against Chris Paddock, who is, he's not very good. He's average at best on a good day. Although he could come out of nowhere too. We've seen him pitch well. We just haven't seen him pitch well in a while. Shane McClanahan is on the list. He's got 2 starts this coming week. He's 24 years old. Tampa Bay pitcher. Probably has good spin rate. He goes to the White Sox and faces Dallas Keuchel, and then he goes to Seattle and faces Marco Gonzalez. Obviously, the second start is a much more friendly situation than the first start. And he has not been very good. And that's the only reason why I think that he could even be available in your league, is because he was pitching well. But in the last couple outings, he has been droppable. So he's only pitched 3 innings in each of the last 2 starts, and his ERA is 9.95, and his WHIP is over 2, almost 2.5. Okay, it's bad. So he still strikes batters out. That's the one thing that's a constant with this guy. He strikes out a lot of batters. He's got 14.2 strikeouts per 9 innings. Okay, even though he's only made it 3 innings each start, over the last 2 starts, he's still striking out 14 per 9. I do think he's worth a pickup, just based on the second start that he gets this week. And who knows, especially you're going to Seattle. Marco Gonzalez has been horrible. I really wanted to put him on the list because he has 2 starts this week. But he's been so bad and hurt too. If you went by nothing that's happened this year, you would say Marco Gonzalez is probably a good idea to start on a 2-start week. And I was very tempted to put him on the list. So if you want to be risky, you want to take a chance on somebody, Marco Gonzalez history tells us that he's not this bad, especially when he gets to pitch at home in one of the best pitcher parks in baseball. So anyway, McClanahan, overall, he has a 4.54 ERA and a 1.37 WHIP after 8 starts. All right. His matchups are decent. Obviously, the second one is better. The one good thing about McClanahan, and Malpal will appreciate this, is that he has a 29.6% strikeout rate and a 43% ground ball rate, which adds up to 72.6. And that puts us over the hump, because if the formula is that Malpal taught us, if it's 70 between adding up the strikeout rate and the ground ball rate. So you add those 2 things up, because if you can't strike out batters, you have to be able to get a lot of ground balls. If you strike out a lot of batters, I guess you don't really need to have the ground balls so much. But these 2 together, add them up. If they add up to 70, then there's hope for this pitcher, or, it kind of, it's good. I like the formula. I think it works. It's good. I'm happy I learned it. So Sammy Long, or Sam Long, depending on where you find him. Okay, which website you go to. Starting pitcher for San Francisco, made his debut on Wednesday, I think. Our friend John Garofalo was texting me that day, and he said, I need a couple pitchers for the rest of the season. And he gave me a list of pitchers, and I was like, oh my goodness, the only one that's even rosterable on this list is Hauser. But I was doing the podcast for Lenny the next day, and I had seen what Sammy Long did in his debut, and I thought it was great. So I said, you should pick this guy up. Any pitcher for San Francisco right now seems to be pretty rosterable. And he only pitched 4 innings on Wednesday, but he does have 2 starts this upcoming week. One of them is at home against Arizona, who can't win on the road ever. And then he faces Philly at home, also great ballpark for pitching. And that's going to be either Saturday or Sunday. I don't know that he'll get deep into games, or even deep enough into a game to get a win. But he also might have an opener, because I believe that he might have come in the second inning. He pitched 4 innings. I'm not sure if he started the game or not that day. But his ERA is 2.25. His WHIP is 0.5. He struck out 7 in 4 innings, and he walked 1. He did allow an earned run on 1 hit. but big deal, right? I mean, before getting called up, Sammy Long was in the minors. He's pitched at AA and AAA this season already. He had 37 strikeouts in 22 and 2/3 innings and a 1.99 ERA. Okay, this is between AA and AAA. In 2019, he had a 3.06 ERA and a 1.04 WHIP, with 112 strikeouts in 97 innings pitched at Single A. His minor league stats tell me that he's a good pitcher. That's what I can say about that. So I definitely like him. Adding him to the picking him up. Pick him up if he's available, whatever. So there's those. There's a couple other pitchers that I don't like recommend wholeheartedly, but I will bring up because they appeared in an article wherever I was reading talking about picking him up. So these aren't really mine. These came from somewhere else between RotoWire or The Athletic. It probably is where I find these. Griffin Canning, the Angels, he's 30% rostered. I've already had my issues with him this year, and my experience with him was not cute. So I just won't even go there because I'm annoyed at him. But if you haven't had him on your roster, you haven't been frustrated by him, he's been okay because lately he's been pretty good. He, on Wednesday against the Royals, he struck out 6 in 6 2/3. He's been up and down overall, but he's allowed 3 runs or less in 5 of his last 7 starts. And his ERA is 5.22, but his FIP is 4.14. His strand rate is 74%. So not very many runners are getting stranded, which means that they're scoring on him when they may not have been if he wasn't getting unlucky. So I will give some luck the blame for this. He also does strike out a good number of batters, like over 10 per 9 innings, which is a career high for him. And I think it, if you're not bitter towards him, he could be good guy get maybe to pick up. Justin Dunn, I've been a fan of his anyway, but I'm not even going to talk about. I just don't think he's even good enough to talk about. He's only 13% rostered, which, okay, let me just read you what they say about him. This is not from me, by the way. This is from someone else's words. Shoulder injury. He's only been out for a little while, though, so this isn't like a long-term thing. He hasn't been out long enough to nurse any kind of shoulder injury, in my opinion. But he's allowed more than 2 earned runs in a start just one time this year. He also has struck out 8 or more batters in 2 of his last 3 starts, which is good. He has a 3.18 ERA. His batting average on balls in play is only 196, though, and his expected ERA is much higher than 3.18. It's 4.43. So if you believe in FIP and expected ERA, then that's a warning sign. And he does pitch in a good ballpark. He does pitch, his home park is Seattle. So that's a plus. Tony Gonsolin, I'll say again, I know I should give up on Gonsolin, but I just think he's too good of a pitcher to give up on completely. His outing, dude, was horrible, but they're still giving him another chance to start games. And hopefully he can get his act together. He did not pitch well on Wednesday. It was horrible. And I mean, I've discussed him on the roundtable. I've argued with Douglas over Tony Gonsolin and like what his role is going to be in the Dodgers lineup or rotation or in their pitching staff, like what his role is going to be. But they only let him throw 66 pitches, or maybe I should say he only threw 66 pitches because he was that bad. It was 1 2/3 innings. He did only allow 1 run, but he walked like, how many did he walk? He walked a lot of batters. I'm surprised it's not mentioned in this paragraph, but he walked and he only made it through 1 2/3. And it was a nightmare of a start, especially if you had him in any kind of daily league. But he did strike out 4 in 1 2/3. Okay. He could remain on a pitch count, but big deal. Everybody's on a pitch count, it feels like. Hopefully he could make it through more than 1 2/3 innings if he's going to throw 66 pitches. But, 66 efficient, effective pitches would get you – it could get you a win if it could get you 5 innings. It should get you – but that's probably too much to ask for anyways. We will see him make another start this week. He posted a 2.31 ERA and he had a 0.84 WHIP in 46 innings. So, look, I doubt he's even available because he was that good last year that people probably didn't dump him after his first bad outing. But just in case he is, he's a good one maybe. Depends on your situation. But for closers, we're going to end this up with closers, talking some closers. Oh, and we're going to talk about schedules this week too a little bit. So for closers, 27 different relievers have at least 1 save in the last 7 days. Okay, there's 12 of them have more than 1 save. So out of 12 of 27 relief pitchers with 1 save at least in the past 7 days, 12 of them have more than 1. 30 of them have at least one blown save, okay, and 50 in the last 2 weeks. So 50 in the last 2 weeks have had at least one save. 50 relievers in 2 weeks, at least one save. That's crazy, right? Does it feel like, I mean, I understand, like, we always feel like this year there's the most whatever, the most injuries, we always feel like that every year. I really do feel like there's way more closers getting saves now, because partially due to the 3-batter rule, and also partially due to the increase in relief usage in general. I don't know. Maybe I feel like there's a lot more teams that don't have a dedicated closer, that less and less teams are willing to name a specific closer, because they say that it's, they want to go by whoever's the best matchup at the time. They just go by situations. They won't pitch these guys more than 2 games in a row, even though they only have to throw like 12 pitches. Okay. It's just that weak. Explain to me why a pitcher cannot come in 3 nights in a row and throw 12 pitches. Explain to me this. How in the world did this happen? Well, whatever. It's part of the reason why there's so many saves happening. Anyway, in the past 2 weeks, 50 relievers have had at least one save, and 50 have also had at least one blown save. Not necessarily the same guys. Some of them have 2 blown saves and no saves, and vice versa. But anyways, 2 teams in baseball roster 4 relievers with at least 2 saves. That would be, you guessed it, Tampa Bay and the Kansas City Royals. So each of these 2 teams have had at least 4 relievers with more than one save. It's crazy. So what do? You try to avoid these teams. You try to avoid it with all your might, because, well, sometimes it could be based on the fact that somebody's hurt. But the first guy that I'm going to bring up right now is Will Smith, and I'm sure that he's probably owned in most leagues. But for those of you who do have a share of Will Smith on your team, you're really happy lately at his performance. So he allowed 4 runs in a third of an inning on May 13th. That was against the Blue Jays. And since then, he's got 15 strikeouts. He hasn't walked any batters since May 13th in 8 2/3 innings. He's got a 3.12 ERA and a .81 WHIP, 15.3 swinging strike percentage, and 4 saves. He's been good. So, positive news for that on that front. The next guy on the list is Daniel Bard. I don't know how many leagues he's been dropped in, but he had a run there where it was looking ugly and nobody was surprised. This guy, I mean, just the fact that Daniel Bard is even pitching in baseball it's a total accomplishment. I root for him big time, because he has gone through a lot of adversity to be where he's at right now. And I give him a lot of credit for that. But he made an adjustment. So he adjusted his spot to the center of the pitching rubber. And that's been helping him out, apparently, because he's only allowed 1 earned run in the past 15 innings since the beginning of May 5th. In 12 games, he has 23 strikeouts and only 5 walks. His ERA is .60. And his WHIP is actually higher than his ERA, okay, if you can imagine. But he's got a 25.6% swinging strike percentage with his slider, 2 wins, 5 saves, and 31 strikeouts with he's striking out batters. He's doing very good right now. 63.8% contact rate allowed. He's probably owned. I don't know. He was really bad at one point, so just maybe you'll get lucky. Lucas Sims now, I think, is as much as he's Cincinnati, okay? Cincinnati. He's been getting the saves recently. I know it's been kind of up in the air. TJ Antone is worth owning in fantasy too, depending on your league, but TJ Antone is an excellent pitcher. And no matter where he goes, no matter where they put him, he's going to be useful in fantasy. He will get wins, he will get saves, he will get holds, he will get strikeouts. As far as I'm concerned, he should be in the rotation. But that could be asking a little much. Who knows? Spring training, he was excellent. If he wouldn't have been hurt, he would have been in the starting rotation, and we would be talking about a completely different pitcher right now. Anyway, Lucas Sims is one of 6 Cincinnati Reds relievers that have a save this season. but he has a save in 5 of his last 6 appearances, and he then, in my opinion, deserves to be talked about on this list. Definitely seems like it's his job. I think that you get momentum even as a closer, even if your manager wants to, put in closers by the matchup situation. I think that when a closer has momentum and they're pitching very well, they keep getting saves. I think that the management is a lot more likely to keep him with that role going forward. So now there is a couple other very little known closers, like, I don't know how to say his name. It's spelled Sborz. So is it Boers or Soars? It's one of those two. Anyway, he's a Texas Rangers. The closer, Ian Kennedy, was put on the injured list with a mild hamstring strain on Wednesday. So he could be in line for some save opportunities coming up in the near future. Not that Texas Rangers get a lot of save opportunities anyway. And the management over there has not really said who the closer is going to be. He could be, if you're in a deep league, like this guy's pretty unknown. You could probably spend $1 on him and get him. He blew 2 saves, and he converted only 1 of 3 save chances so far this season. But temporary option, maybe deep leagues, whatever. He's very under the radar. And Cisnero Tigers, Detroit Tigers, and we talk about the Tigers a lot in their closing situation. Gregory Soto is like the guy that they were using, but I don't know for sure that he is going to get as many save chances anymore, because Cisnero has 2 saves. And he's got 2 saves in the last 2 times that the Tigers have won games. So 2 opportunities, 2 saves. Obviously that means that he's probably the most likely guy that they're going to go to should they get into a save opportunity. Again, when they do. I shouldn't say if. They're going to eventually, right? Michael Fulmer, I definitely picked up Michael Fulmer. I was like, yay, he's going to be so good as a closer, and because he was a failed starter. And a lot of times these guys go into the bullpen and they're much better there. But I don't think he's hurt, by the way. So that idea has come to an end. But he might, when he does come back, which should be it's not going to be a long-term injury stint for Michael Fulmer. We don't think it is anyway. So this is not a long-term situation, or maybe Michael Fulmer goes and be the effector, because I wouldn't be surprised at that either. I think the only reason he was getting saves is because he was like the only one that they had available that was able to get saves at the time. I think that they needed him in that spot for a second, but I don't know for sure that they like him there overall. They probably want multiple innings out of him when possible. When he comes back, he is much better in the bullpen, I have to say. But so what else do you guys want to talk about? Because Kenyon Middleton was dropped. Matt Hooper's here. Let's talk to you, Matt Hooper. Okay. So I see in the chat room when I came today, Matt Hooper he made a statement. It was from yesterday. So I was super excited when I thought it was from today. I was like, oh my goodness. Okay, let's talk about this. He says a guy in his league wants Bauer from him. I didn't even think that you would own Bauer. It's crazy that you do, considering you don't really like the guy and you had to draft him like super high. I'm amazed that you even have Bauer, okay, a share of Bauer in a league. But that aside, somebody wants you to trade Bauer to them. You can trade Bauer in this league. This guy is in first place, so you're hesitant about whether or not you should trade Bauer to the first place team. So there's 2 different things here, 2 different parts of this, which is, one, do you trade the guy in first place? Do you trade him a guy like Bauer? Number 2, do you trade Bauer? I know you're not doing that great in this league, but you can't give Bauer away for nothing, right? Just because you're doing bad. And even though you're trading him to the number 1 team, you might want to consider trading Bauer. And I'm a big fan of Bauer, a big fan. Not that I think that he is going to be a horrible pitcher should he have to immediately stop using substances, because he's going to use it until he gets caught. He's going to use it. There's no doubt about it. I'm positive that he's doing this on purpose. He is out of control with the sticky substances, and he's doing it to force Major League Baseball's hands, and he's willing to take the fall for it. It's only 10 games. Is that 10 games? No, it's not 10 starts. It's like 10 games, which a starter, come on, man. That is not a great or very harsh punishment to me. Am I missing something here with the 10 games thing? They don't have to be out for 10 starts. They'd only have to miss 10 games. It's a couple of starts. It's worth it. It's 100. You get 30 starts a season, so you miss 2 at the most, right? It'll be like a rest for him and keep him, whatever pitcher gets the shaft, okay, he'll get a couple days rest. He might actually make it to the end of the season if he gets suspended for 10 games. It's going to come down to that. So any of these guys that has to serve 10-day suspension is not going to be that horrified about it. Most of these pitchers are going to have a hard time staying healthy and not running out of steam late in the season. But Bauer is increased his spin rate by 17%. If a guy wants Bauer, dude, you need to consider it big time. Doesn't matter if he's in first place or not, because do you still have a chance to make the playoffs in this league or what? I want to know that. I know it's a points head-to-head league, and I also know that you guys don't get very many bench spots. I don't think it's a dynasty league or a keeper league, but I'd like to know that too. And I should have asked these questions at the beginning of this conversation so I could just blab about Bauer and while you're answering them. But do answer those questions for me. I think that you should absolutely always consider a trade, no matter who it is that you're trading and no matter what player it is. If the offer is good enough, obviously this is going to depend on what you need. Do you think that you could make the playoffs still? Because that is what I want to know. Yes, don't be trying to get people to call you when I'm doing a podcast, Leonard. Jeez Louise. Just because I think he's a whiny bitch doesn't mean I wouldn't own him. Okay, that's true. You shouldn't choose your fantasy players by whether or not you like them personally. That's a good rule to live by. That's definitely a good rule to live by. But I do want to know if you have a chance to make the playoffs. And he says he's not trading Bauer. You might regret that, dude. You do see his ERA in other seasons, right? Other than last season, you do see that his ERA has never been below 4, even though I'm the biggest fan. I obviously think he's a better pitcher than that, but there's a question mark as to how much is going to come off of Trevor Bauer's fastball when he is not allowed to use this stuff. He probably made up his own recipe, dude. He's probably been working on this for a year, making up his own recipe. He's probably got the best recipe in baseball. He's got the highest spin rate increase by far in baseball. Nobody even comes close. You can't even compare Bauer and Cole at all, because you're talking a 6% increase versus an 18% increase. And this is just his fastball. But see, Bauer is smart enough to be able to use this sticky substances on pitches that are not his fastball. He might have been able to come up with some kind of sticky substance that it's like, I don't know, maybe less traceable because it doesn't have color, and it's not. Most sticky substances have lots of color to them. So if you see, you can actually see it on the ball. If there was some kind of sticky substance that was clear, that worked better than what they already have, which is bullfrog and rosin, that's probably relatively clear. I don't know. Regardless, Bauer is, if I don't have him on any teams this year because I just wasn't willing to pay that much for him. I kind of regret it for the most part, but I definitely think that anybody that has Bauer should consider if you get a decent offer, you should consider a trade. Even though one thing in Bauer's defense, this guy will go 200 innings. He will last. He will make it. He will not get tired. He could probably pitch another 200 on top of what he's already pitched if he needed to. And I think that part of the reason why the Dodgers paid him so much money is because of that. he would pitch every other day if he could, and he would be fine doing it because every year in the off season he's throwing baseballs. Rizzo, Freddie Freeman. Oh, Douglas, are you still answering the question for the 10 home runs 10 years straight, or how do we explain Brandon Crawford? Well, so basically, are we explaining how did he get so good this year in comparison to his other seasons? Like, well, San Francisco in general is better, but Crawford is always right. He's not popular in fantasy, but I'm going to look his stats up right now. Just he's not been great, and he's pretty much available every year after drafts are done. He's available kind of like Brandon Belt, but I feel like we've seen power from him before, so I'm not that surprised about the power. He's 34 years old, though. What the hell? Okay. He's hit 14 home runs so far this season. Last season, he hit 8 home runs. So if you average that out over a full season, it would have been on pace for 24 homers, which would have been the most that he's ever hit in his career. So, okay, whatever happened, it started last year. Let's see what his hard hit and stuff is. Let's see what he's doing. He's walking a lot more this year, dude. He's walking 11%. Last year, he only walked 7.8%. So that's a decent increase in walk rate. That's good. His hard contact is 32. His hard contact rate is 32.3. It's not great. So he does hit the ball pretty hard, but it doesn't seem like he does it on a regular basis. His max exit velocity is 109.8. So the percentage of hits that leave his bat at more than 95 miles an hour are 26.7. Definitely walking more. His contact rate's the same. His batting average on balls in play is actually lower. His strikeout rate is the same, 22.8%. I just don't see like anything. Here's one thing. His home run to fly ball rate increased from 16% last year, which was his career high. Now it's 23.7%. That's a lot more home runs to fly balls than he was getting last year. But let's see, 157 against lefties. We do not like what he does against lefties. This is normal for him, though, it seems like. Over the past, since 2019, he's hit 216 against lefties and 249 against righties. Not that much better. But this year, he's batting 157 against lefties. That's horrible. He's better away from home. Obviously, San Francisco is a pitcher's park, so we're not surprised at that. I don't really know what else, okay? I don't know what else. Let's see if it says any notes going into the season. It says that he's hitting the ball harder with more loft and that he's improved on his defense. He's nowhere near the level of defense that he was 5 years ago, but here's something. He's on the last season of his contract, maybe? Is he going to retire after this year? Maybe he wants to get signed again because he signed a 6-year, $75 million contract in 2015, and that could maybe explain a little bit about why he's hitting so good. I don't know. I still think that, I mean, obviously he's worth having on your team. He's got 14 home runs already. So we're talking 30 homers. If he stays on this pace, it'll be more than 30 homers. I just love what San Francisco is doing. Hopefully they can keep doing it, but their pitching is undeniably good. So whoever is their pitching coach over there is making miracles happen over the last couple of seasons with some like reclamation projects that, obviously that's not the case here, but Brandon Belt is kind of the same. They're just both very underrated players in fantasy. But so Douglas, Douglas hasn't been here for 32 minutes, so I'm way back in the chat room. All right, that's it. So Matt Hooper, okay, you said different league. It's not in your points league. Okay. He asked you what you wanted, but he never made you an offer, and you said that you wanted Acuna. That's probably a good place to start, right? Can you still make the playoffs in this league, or is this a roto league and there's no playoffs? I don't know if we're even getting to the point where you could say that I can't make the playoffs. I mean, if you are in head-to-head weekly leagues and you've lost every week up to this point, is it time to accept the fact that you're probably not going to make the playoffs and then move accordingly before everybody else that finds out they're not going to make the playoffs starts making moves? If it's a keeper league, that's something to consider. But I'm not a fan of giving up ever. So, and when I say giving up, I mean accepting the fact that you're not going to make the playoffs. I mean, even if you accept the fact that you're not going to make the playoffs, you still have to play and put your lineup in every week, or you're just that's a bad league mate if you don't do that. Even if you're a loser, you still have to put your lineup in, make moves, do whatever, and because the rest of the league depends on that. So, and then they're just excited when they get to play up against you. They're like, "Ooh, yay! I get to play Matt Hooper this week." They're freaking happy about it. So you said you can still make the playoffs, and you should try. Wherever it is that is keeping you from winning each week, dude, whatever it is, whether it's stolen bases, if it's points, whatever it is, figure it out what it is and trade Bauer for it. And because even if it's not Bauer, think of this. It's like the Hail Mary play that you know it's getting close to that time where you have to accept the fact that you might not make the playoffs. If you still have time, then you have time for a Hail Mary. And maybe that's what you need to do to compete in this league. Because once the playoffs start, you start anew. Everything's fresh now. If you're in the playoffs, it is the same for everybody. Everybody starts on even footing. So your goal is to try to make the playoffs. And what it might take to make the playoffs is some kind of crazy Hail Mary move. You have to address immediately your weaknesses on your team. And if it takes a Bauer would be the first on my list to trade. Either that or some rookie that's hitting very well or pitching very well. Like you could probably get a lot for Alek Manoah if you have him, or some youngster. That's me. That's what I would do. But I'm not giving up without a fight. So, you're going to have to take some kind of risk. You can't just sit there and hope that you're going to make up like 5 weeks. It's not going to happen. You're going to have to do something crazy, a Hail Mary in fantasy. You want a starting pitcher. That shouldn't be that hard. I'm sure you can get a decent starting pitcher back for him. Like, I don't know, Kyle Hendricks threw a tantrum the other day, so I wouldn't say him, but he's the first pitcher that came to my mind because he's not overly priced. And who else could you get? I don't know who he has, but that I shouldn't just be making wild guesses in the whole pitcher pool. But whoever he has, that's who you get to choose between. Choose him and a pitcher. Choose a starting pitcher and a hitter. Whatever type of hitter that you need, that's going to maybe 3 players you could get from him. He's in first place, so his roster is full of good players. Bottom line, you can totally make this happen. But have a great day, everybody.